Government action is needed to tackle the massive driving test backlog, according to Mayo Sinn Féin TD Rose Conway-Walsh. The Road Safety Authority has confirmed that over 93,000 people across the country are currently waiting for a driving test, including 1,171 in County Mayo. There's currently a wait of 724 at the Castlebar test centre and a waiting list of 447 in Ballina. Deputy Conway-Walsh says there's a clear need for additional driving instructors and testers, and she's calling on the Transport Minister Eamon Ryan to intervene and find a way forward to accelerate the number of tests that can be carried out safely over the coming months.
This is a problem that's been escalating over the weeks and months. So now we know that there are 1,171 learner drivers waiting for a test in Mayo. That's 447 from the Ballina testing centre and 724 from the Castlebar testing centre. And that's in the context of 93,791 people waiting for a driving test across the country.
Is this because of COVID-19 restrictions that we have such a backlog?
Well, it's obvious that there aren't enough drivers, there aren't enough testers, so the capacity isn't there. So you can say, why wasn't the capacity there beforehand? But obviously most of it is COVID related, in that the whole driving test system hasn't been altered or hasn't been amended to meet the demands of COVID. And meanwhile, you have all these people waiting for driving tests.
So what's the solution? What needs to be done?
Well, the Minister urgently needs to consult with the instructors and the testers and the unions, and they clearly need additional drivers and testers. They need longer opening hours and they need weekend tests. They have to address this backlog, because many of these people who I'm hearing from across the county are people who are waiting to start jobs and people who absolutely need to be able to drive to access their work. We're not like other counties or some other urban counties where you have the choice of using public transport. We don't have it. There's also the issue in terms of people who have done their driving test, have been lucky enough to do their driving test, but they haven't actually got their full licence, because that requires them to meet with the driving licence section as well. So while they might have passed their test, they're still waiting for the licence. So it's a whole debacle, and the Minister Eamon Ryan, needs to sort it out urgently.
Now, I know driving tests are going on at the moment, but the RSA is asking that only people who need it for essential purposes would go to that test. So it's really up to the person themselves as to whether they sit the test or cancel.
But there's so many people now who absolutely need it urgently. I mean, most people who ring my office will tell me they need it urgently because of the impact that it's having on their employment. And the people who have done tests, the fact that they're still forced to have an accompanied driver with them isn't practical at all. So it is urgent for everybody to be able to get their driving test and to get their lessons. There's also the backlog in terms of the theory tests as well. So one thing is feeding into another, which leads to an absolute paralysis.
And if you can't do the theory test, then you can't take the lessons.
For sure, yeah, exactly. And then there's other people. So I'd suggest the waiting list is even longer than that, because there's people who know that there's such a backlog that they haven't even applied. So there's a lot more in the system, and practical things like I mentioned in terms of extending the opening hours, the weekend tests and the additional driving instructors need to be put in place immediately.
Deputy Rose Conway-Walsh.